On Hello Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Worldly wisdom teaches that it is better for reputation to fail conventionally than to succeed unconventionally. John Maynard Keynes. My dear friend Carl Eppolito is here today to drop knowledge on me, you, all of us, consultant for years and founder of CSM, friend of the Culture Matters podcast.
Absolutely.
Professional walker and thinker with me. You know me, back in the days in Philadelphia, and father of two beautiful girls, I believe, Mia and Sophia. And I watch these TikTok videos of you guys and have for a long time. But really, strategist and advisor and thinker or external consigliere to how people could, create go-to-market success from a marketing standpoint, content standpoint, and founder of CSM. So thanks for coming on, man.
Man, I'm so happy to be here. This is great. This is a long time coming.
Yes, long time coming. And I guess firstly, it's like, what has been, outside of, I guess we have to talk about growing the hair at some point, although the audience is going to hear the audio, and like if they follow me up to this point, they'll follow you. They'll know that I've grown the hair out in the pandemic. Outside of that, which we can get into that, 2023, what are some of the exciting things that you have learned and are in the midst of creating? Because it's been a pretty crazy couple of years since we really got together.
Yeah, man. I'm super blessed and honored to be on the show. Love the show, and it's even stepping back on Culture Matters. I remember when we first met, and I remember asking a lot of questions around culture because I didn't believe it. I'll tell you an interesting story. So a good friend and mentor of mine, Chris Geishen, is the CEO of Wawa. And
wow.
We were at dinner one night and we had just met, and there was 10 people at the table. And I've always had the mindset that, one, if you're at a table with somebody, act as if you're supposed to be at that table with somebody. Like if you're having dinner with somebody, you're a peer. And a lot of people, if they're more powerful, more successful, you naturally become a fan of that person. Like you're excited to be there rather than expecting to be there. And if you're excited to be there, you'll add nothing memorable to the conversation. If you expect to be there, then you'll engage in conversation confidently, even if in your head, I was a software sales rep at the time and he's the CEO of Wawa, right? So anyways, and he's talking to the table about the culture of Wawa. And he really believes it. And I'm looking at him like, you are so full of fluff. Like you were just another CEO and you're from Philly and Wawa's from Philly and everyone's glad handing you. And I got my MBA from Villanova and he's a big Villanova guy. And I was just ready to be like, I don't believe in it. And I was like waiting for my moment kind of thing. Cocky. I think I was 29. Yeah, we met 9 years ago. And so, but I was smart enough to know, don't be an asshole. So he's talking about culture. And I said, I don't believe it. I said, if one company offers me 300 grand and one company offers me 90 grand, your culture's not worth $210,000. It's just not. If one offers me 150, one offers me 140, sure, other things matter. And at the time, I was in definitely a toxic isn't the right word. That's a very overplayed word in today's society. But I was in a situation where I was making a lot of money. I was working for somebody else, not myself. I made them a lot of money. Hated the role I was in. Loved what I could do with it though. And I do believe in that. I'm a process person. And I've become very detached from whether it's even the companies that I consult for a little bit, although that's become alignment's a much bigger part of my life now. But I've become obsessed with the software sales process. And this phase of life and the content creation, I'm obsessed with the process of it. And it's allowed me to kind of be detached from if the software is good or not, or if the company is in a headline or not, right? So anyways, we're in this conversation around culture. And I'm just it became because, of course, I want to work for Wawa, right? It's all happy and whatever else. I'm like, but I would not go work there for 90 grand when you make 310. So I challenge him and he's just and he gives me that one quote where he's like, culture would eat strategy for breakfast. And I'm like, that's cute. I could have Googled that. I guess I wasn't giving him any credence, right? I was just ready for him to fail on it. And he's challenged me. And it was super respectful, but everyone at the table was stunned that somebody else would like, why would you even respectfully like ask him a question or like press a little bit? And what I didn't expect happening was he remembered it too. So the next morning, because I really was fascinated, I was like, hold on, like you're a true believer in this. Like he was a true believer in culture. And so the next morning, I get up and I know how, CEOs get their emails. You got to beat the inbox. So it's like 5:30 in the morning. I send him an email. And I'm like, hey, Chris, like I was really interested in that conversation. And I want to know, maybe when it's just two of us, whether it's off the record, whatever, I want to know what you mean by this. And I will tell you, and then now looking at his growth in Wawa and how they've exploded, like the man believes in culture, like legitimately. He believes in the fact that they've done stats over, they have the double doors when you walk into Wawa's. And yeah, it's because of wind and the storm and the weather kind of thing.
No,
But
so you can hold it open.
he said not over 90% of people who walk into Wawa hold the door for somebody else. Like I've been so stunned, and and his impact on me, and the fact that like corporate culture matters, family culture matters, like the culture of your surroundings matter. And then obviously we met, and that was actually probably not a whole lot longer. We probably met 5 or 6 years ago, and the culture matters. You were really like on the front side of that. So I've always respected it because I didn't want to. Like out of business school, I didn't respect culture. I thought it was total BS. Like, no, like sales guys go produce, like cultures for marketing or cultures for, and no, Chris was like, and he had enough humility to like take that meeting as a executive, but he also believes it. And it's a super real thing. And then you look at everything that Wawa's done, all the success they've had, people love the brand. It's culture. So anyways, sorry for that immediate tangent, but I have a lot of respect for it because of obviously him, and then like watching you grow.
What a profound story.
It's wild when there's a lot of things to unpack with it, but I don't think people understand when you get in a room with successful people, like you're already there. You shouldn't be excited to be there. So if you're going to be there, contribute respectfully.
What's your advice to someone listening that feels like they have something to say? They've been in that room maybe recently and they said nothing.
So you probably don't. You probably don't have anything of actual value to say because everyone probably does know more than you. It's probably a very legitimate fear, if you're honest. Like they probably do know way more. And this is just the art of asking questions. Like just be like, people love talking about themselves. So just ask them a question. Be interested in whatever they're an expert in, and they'll tell you everything about the topic, and then they'll end up telling you everything that you actually want to know. And if you have value, ask questions around letting them say, oh, like ask questions around, like, let's say you're a social media manager, or let's say that you have a good idea for a company. Don't tell them you have a good idea for the company. Like ask questions around, let them arrive at the conclusion that what they currently have might not be great. What you can literally watch people go down the journey of, yeah, we're doing this thing. I don't really like it. I'm not really sure about it. I just closed a huge client and I knew that his social media wasn't good, but I knew he was also trying. You could tell that he was investing in it. And he was trying, and he's just missing the mark on it. So when I met him, I already knew that. We met. He's like, oh, like content creation. He was like, I'm working on that. I was like, I've seen some pieces. Tell me, like, why did you do, like, why did you, I still want to be like, Matt, I've got you. Like, you're so close, but it's not there. I was like, hey, I saw this piece. What were you thinking here? He was like, I was trying to do this, but I didn't really do that. I just let him arrive at the conclusion that it wasn't that good yet. So if you just get in the art of asking questions, I'm in the AI business now. That's all questions. You get in the art of asking questions, you don't have to add any value.
What's happening in that space?
Oh, the AI space. So I've been in tech for 20 years, and it's difficult for people that have been in tech because what's happening is very different than than consumer behavior with it, with society's reaction to it, the media's publication of it. It's very fascinating to watch politicians pontificate around it, knowing we forget that politicians are professionals at what they do.
Mm.
That we demean them, we talk down on them, we say that they're not intelligent. Oh, they're so dumb. They've been doing this role their whole career,
Mm.
and they have more power than all of us combined. They're not idiots. We don't agree with them and we don't follow their logic. And some of the things that they do are seemingly idiotic, but they're professionals at what they do. And I do think that we really discredit their success because we don't agree with it or we don't like it. And it's fascinating because politicians don't know what's happening with AI, but they know they need to. They know that they have to like have a stance on it. And it's one of the very like oil and gas. Politicians have been politicizing that forever, right? Like your commerce, your energy, your defense. These are all topics that politicians are professionals in because they've been politicized for hundreds of years. I mean, the ancient Romans politicized these topics. AI is it's never been politicized. So you're watching politicians almost be novices in how they politicize it. I mean, otherwise Kamala would never be the AI czar, right? It's like it isn't that she can't be it, is that there's definitely somebody better in Congress who could have that role, and they don't know who it is. And so
Wait,
the
she's
highest
the
rank.
AI czar?
That's literally like her. That's yes. It's a horrifying thing in the industry, but yes, they didn't have anywhere to put this title. Like it's being in the industry is really interesting to watch it kind of unfold because like the president and vice president, they're not the head of energy, they're not the head of transportation. Like they know how to create committees, even if we disagree with them. Like Pete Buttigieg being the head of the transportation, like, do I think he's improved anything? No, but don't be so short-minded as to think that he wasn't in that role. Like him being in that role was so beyond us thinking that like our roads get fixed. It is a giant chess game that none of us are invited to. So it's of course we don't understand the pieces. It's interesting because AI's never had a seat at the political table. So you're literally watching them figure out like, I don't know who should leverage. And I also like, I don't know what favor I need to ask to have this role or what chip I can play. So if I give it to this person, I don't know if I can ever get that chip back, right? Because everything in DC is about favors. That's how it works. And so they gave it to the highest ranking person that wasn't Biden, and it lands on her. That's literally why she has it. So it's fascinating to watch industries outside of tech, like just try to talk about it, and then it's interesting watching. It's not a scary thing at all inside of tech. It's actually an insanely safe thing. I'll tell you why. Most people have heard of ChatGPT. Most people have heard of OpenAI. Have you played around with ChatGPT at all?
I think no is a safe answer.
But you heard of it.
Yes.
So like, and like it's basically Google with a robot. It's like gives you amazing answers to all the questions you want to ask. So
am I correct with the hypothesis, the general speculation that it's an aggregator of information more so than anything? That's going to spit back proportional to my own subjective programming of it based on my own content body. Like meaning that's a paradox. There's a paradox within it, right, which is if I'm a fool, I'm going to get back
foolish answers.
Yeah. So anyway, that's about as much as I've hypothesized about the whole thing's utility currently. Analogous to like Bitcoin blockchain may not yet be instantiated in Main Street. However, it doesn't negate the potential for its future integration into Main Street.
Yeah, so there's no threat to society with blockchain. There's really not. There's an adaptation to how things could possibly be going. There is the reality with blockchain is however it gets accepted at a large scale, we're just going to accept that at a societal level. It's not the 85% of the population isn't going to stop what they're doing because blockchain advances or doesn't advance. That makes sense.
That poses an interesting, I guess that depends on the level of centrality in the government. I would argue potentially it's okay. So you're saying, I'm going to digress.
Yeah, it's not. We're not going to. Society's going to accept it, however it progresses, because it's. I don't know how to explain it. Society has to adopt AI. They don't have to adopt blockchain for blockchain to continue to grow. They have to accept AI because it's a living, breathing organism in the tech space that we have to learn how to use. It will become immersed. Blockchain might be immersed in our everyday lives, and there's parts of it that we don't even know like exist. Like we kind of just keep going, and I think the success of blockchain will be the fact that it doesn't create a ton of friction with everyday life. It'll get rolled out over time with us knowing less and less and less and less about it, and us just adapting over time with it. Whereas AI, we have to adapt, like, or it dies. Like we have to use it.
Why? Yeah, let's start there.
Because if you go on a website and you see a chatbot, they're basically all customer service based, and that chatbot is created off of what's called a decision tree. It gives you like 3 questions. Like, do you have a customer service question? Do you want to find where your order is? Whatever else, right? And then you go into that little section, and you can only ask it 3 things because the bot itself is not inherently intelligent, meaning you cannot have a 2-way conversation with it. You can't give it a whole bunch of text, it dissect the text, put an intelligence layer to it to figure out what you're asking it. You have to ask chatbots very specific things because it's a giant decision. Oh, you're going to ask this? Great, here's your answer. And then you can ask these 2 things, and then you can go here or here. It's a predetermined path. With AI, to your point earlier, the fool gets foolish answers.
Yeah, can you just give me feedback on, was I on?
You're 100% on track.
Do I understand
Yeah.
somewhat of what's going on? Because I haven't done it. I haven't really played other than asking it one thing. Someone at a CTO of a company that we're close was like, hey, Jay, come over here. Tell me something to type in. And I said, yeah, tell me about Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. And then it gave me a bunch of bullshit that I disagreed with.
So, exactly. So you said a lot right there. This would be like me asking you like philosophical. This would be like me asking you a philosophical question that to me is like completely rudimentary and binary, and you're like, dude, that is like 300 years of philosophical. So I love that because you also highlighted everything in AI with that example.
Well, I want to add something. Okay, this is fun. Okay,
you treated it like Google, right? So you treated AI like Google with a question I want an answer. But you asked that a subjective question. It's like, what did you ask? What do I think about this, or what is the?
I couldn't recall. It was just, what's what was one of the central themes of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment or something?
Right, an answer that but isn't an answer that has like a logical conclusion. It isn't like a 2 + 2 is 4, the fastest route to hear something else. But there is a logical answer that has to be discerned, and you discern it through taking in information, right? So like you know the answer to that question, but a chatbot, for example, couldn't give you that answer back because they can't. It's not a binary exchange of information. So people are treating AI as if it's Google because that's how consumer behavior is. You have a question, you go to Google, give me a restaurant. How do I do this? Right? It's a one-way conversation. Like I just ask it a question and then it just gives me the answer back. It's not.
Well, that's not how learning's done.
Exactly. So artificial intelligence is an engine that has to be continuously learning. It's the art of asking questions. So instead of asking what's the central theme of, if you were to unpack that all the way back to what are you actually trying to get to? Is there something in that theme that you're trying to arrive at? It's the art of asking questions to like, wait, is the question not even that I even need to ask? What's the theme of this? So on and so forth, right? It's like, there's a whole entire art of asking the questions that arrive at the right question to ask, letting the engine get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. What you're seeing happen right now with ChatGPT is people are using it for efficiencies, not proficiencies. And I'm telling you now, and for anyone listening, everybody's going to get AI wrong. Every one of your listeners.
I think the creators are aware of this, and that's why they're just taking the money that's R&D, which is the monthly. Like the novelty of it is leading to a high recurring revenue, which is, correct me if I'm off on this, but this is my speculation. We don't need the general populace to be really getting any value out of it. Meaning, if I'm the operating principle of the idea, what we need is to aggregate the data from how they relate with it and their money, which is based on the novelty of it, the recurring revenue, is
This
going
is-
to really fund the build out of the entire utility of it in the future. I think
So-
that's what's really going on.
That's what everyone's made you think. So that's great. That's not what's happening at all.
Yeah.
That's why being in the industry has been very fascinating. Microsoft partnered with ChatGPT and gave them $10 billion to build it out. And as part of that 10 billion, I also don't think people can grasp like that investment. A $10 million investment is a big investment for a startup on its first round. 100 million is like a Series D unicorn level. You have hit the world. A $1 billion investment means we're going to IPO. A $10 billion investment that means that there's something more happening. That doesn't exist. So they gave OpenAI a $10 billion investment. And with that came obviously access to the development team and world-class resources, et cetera, et cetera. But when you really peel that back, they don't need money. So that's gone. The founder, Sam Altman, billionaire. He founded Y Combinator in the tech industry. So money isn't the play. So that's great. So let's think about what's happening besides money. OpenAI's goal is for all future intelligence platforms to be built on top of them. They want to have they want to be Google. They want to be in the tech world like a Salesforce. They want everything to be built on top of them. And it's called cost per query, but like there's a cost for like me, for example, every time I ask it a question, there's a cost associated with that query. And their goal is to make the cost per query so low that they're the only platform people can use because they don't need any revenue. And they want to be ubiquitous by having other companies build. They want to have companies built on top of them. And that's how, I mean, Jay, the number of companies that have done this in the last 100 years is so small. The feat is so big that, and they'll achieve it. They will more than likely achieve it. And I've watched enough of the interviews now to know that like we've built our whole entire company on the premise that their goal is to charge us as little as they possibly can because they need all the hooties in the world built on top of them. And then once they're all built on top of them, they have the entire market and all the intelligence will then be built through. Does that make sense? It's like, so their business model is actually, we don't want any end user charge anything. We want every company. We want to make millionaires out of people who have built companies on top of us. And that is the stickiest, rarest thing. And that's the golden parachute of technology. Like you can't be replaced when there are economies built on top of you. That's their goal. And when that's their goal, that makes AI so much less threatening because they don't want AI destroying the world. They need all of us using it. They don't want it to do something catastrophic. They don't want to replace 100 million jobs. What will happen is people, when they use AI the right way, they will become more proficient as a professional and they will simply do better work. And then as they have more success, they're going to hire people that have the same skill set that they had to do their other work, which means they're going to leverage AI as well. And so it's not that AI is going to replace a bunch of jobs. It will replace some jobs, yes, because it's more efficient. But what it's going to do is create a more proficient workforce. And then you're only going to want to hire people that have a proficiency rating at a certain level. And when you know that you can become more proficient when you leverage a set of tools, AI, for example, it's going to be like a resume thing. Like, are you proficient in AI? Yes or no? Because I know those who are can get more done and it's better quality. And that you cannot debate that. Like a person plus being fluent in AI knows more, not wisdom. That's a whole separate conversation, right? There's the total capacity of AI, which is all the knowledge minus wisdom. Wisdom being the things that as human beings we learn through experience. So AI can't learn at a human level what we learn. So AI's total output is complete intellect minus wisdom. The reason that it's smarter than us is because as humans, we don't have total intellect, but we have all of the wisdom, right? So we're intellect plus wisdom. AI is intellect minus wisdom, but they have all the intellect and none of the wisdom. Does that equation make sense?
I'm listening.
Yeah. So as AI comes into the workforce, what you will see are people, everyone will use it for efficiency. And what I mean is they're going to go to ChatGPT, they're going to type in, create for me a 30-day content calendar, create for me an email template, create for me a SMS marketing template, write this email for me. And we both know people. Awesome. You have opened up 15% more productive time in your day. Great. You didn't do shit with it. And we all know that. Like, it isn't like you're going to go get 15% more done. The other side of the coin is every fool, to your point, just ask ChatGPT to do the same damn thing, which means every email campaign is going to look the same. How many shitty LinkedIn
We have a
messages do you
serious
get?
paradox to contend with, and I really want your thoughts on this, which
So,
is
you go ahead, which is what?
I'd have, if I'm gonna, well, the quality of the questions is going to have a contextual relationship with the quality of the human.
Yes.
So and now is this,
which is why
maybe I could lead
yes.
the conversation. Is this the value of people that are dead? I still have to understand your value proposition, but is this the value of having people like yourself, the stewards of, that process essentially? Is that your contention? Is that people have to learn how? You're talking about the how to go from efficiency to proficiency.
Yes.
Is that part of the solution to that paradox?
Yes, it is. It is without.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
So that the audience can follow us and.
Yeah, for sure. So CSM stands for Social Media Content Strategy and Management. So to back up a little bit, after business school, went to business school at Villanova and got my MBA, went to work at SAP, was a national account executive, sold software for years. And then I was traveling 200 days a year, and then got divorced 6 years ago. My daughters they had just turned 2 and 4. I couldn't travel and be an active dad. And so if you are going to be the person, Ed Milet talks about this, right? Like, there's a person in every genealogy that changes the direction of their family. And it meant a lot to me to be a dad, like a lot. I had one that I don't want to replicate at all. And so people will quickly say, oh, well, you're a product of your environment. And I say, yes. And that could mean I could replicate my environment. Sure. And that's what as humans, that's the first thought we go to. You're going to be just like your environment. And I say, no, I am a product of my environment. I know the environment that I don't want to create. I know the environment that I learned. And I know that I need to go learn healthier environments for other people because I am a product of my environment. Meaning I'm going to go create a new one. So being a dad, and I had worked my tail off to get to where I was professionally. And there was a mental hurdle to get over when that changed, when I went through the divorce, and to have my kids and not just be an every other weekend dad, but to be active. I wasn't getting on an airplane. So that career that I had worked towards, that was changing. And I tried to hold on for about 1.5 years, and it just all fell apart. You can't serve two gods. And it totally fell apart. I mean, I lost everything, all of it. I had the Denali Yukon, pulled out of the driveway for sure. I had to sell my house, like, got behind on payments, like went through all of it. And then the pandemic hit, like 1.5 years after that. And during the pandemic, I found myself, before the pandemic, I found myself being more vocal in my faith. I've always had a faith, but you would have known me as my professional success, my philanthropy. My faith would have been like the 9th thing you might have said. And so it struck me, and that's actually an awesome story for later, for a different day, on why that happened. But I was like, man, my identity needs to be what I'm actually rooted in. So my daughters and I started creating content in August, September of 2020. And I did it on TikTok first because no one knew me on TikTok. I didn't have a following. I was scared to do it on Instagram and Facebook. And we just shared our faith. in a very non-evangelical way. And we made content about being a dad. And I just shared what I didn't realize at the time that so many more people are experiencing. People are inquisitive about their faith. And that can be people that have had it forever, and they're more inquisitive. That could be people that have gone to church and left the church. That could be atheists seeking the church. I had no idea the inquiry about faith that existed. And I had no idea the number of dads that don't maybe want to admit out loud that they struggle at fatherhood. I'm also not a perfect dad, so I didn't want to have that. So there's a lot of things that I uncovered. And so I started creating content about that. And then having a 20-year tech background, I know how the platforms are built. I know how Facebook is built. I had all that. So once we learn how to create content, I could create it for the platforms that have success. And then I've got 3 degrees, so I know how to create the strategies for companies on why they would have social media. And then once I became a content creator, I knew how the content was created. So this like flow just all came together. And I created Social CSM. It also stands for Carl Sophia Mia, which is kind of fun as well. Fast forward, I get introduced to a guy named Eric Post. We actually met via TikTok through dad content. And then he's talking about tech a little bit. And I'm like, I kind of know tech. Like, what do you... And he's got some perspectives on the riots and what was happening in the pandemic. I'm like, I have some thoughts on this. These are kind of aligned. And like, I feel like I have some intellectual thoughts, and you seem to be kind of like, so we just developed this relationship over like the last 2.5 years randomly. Come to find out, he's an insanely sharp human. And to your point, is that he wanted to create a platform for people to leverage the power of AI. Is so beyond what we can ever imagine if we know how to use it. And so he's like, has all these ideas around, like, think of every small business owner. If you have a laundromat, like, you know how to run that laundromat. And you're like, well, how do I hire somebody? You're not an HR professional. Well, man, if I could talk to an HR professional, what would that be like? He's like, well, you could ask an artificial intelligence, but through an HR lens. That'd be beneficial. Well, I want to scale my wholesale real estate business, but I don't know how to, what does that do? Well, and that would be awesome to be able to ask AI that through the lens of operations. And so this all kind of made sense. And then it was like, well, what if we had open AI, but then on top of it, we had the contextual layer or personalities or personas or like your co-pilot of asking it questions through the different business lenses. And then we were like, all right, well, what if we did that? And we added another contextual layer of like the top 500 business books. And so now we're adding additional contextual layers, but we're doing this in the frame of business entrepreneurship. The small business owner who is kind of strapped, like maybe they have, they've got 10 employees, maybe they have 100, but like they do what they do. And as you try to grow, and I know through all of the people you've worked with, the hardest part about trying to grow is growing in areas where you're not the expert. But then you gotta try to trust somebody. Now you're trying to meet. Like, it would be so helpful at night. I could go on and ask the most intelligent model we've ever interacted with questions, and then they come back to me through the lens of these lines of business. So are you tracking that so far, and kind of like where this idea came from? And so me and him were just talking about this, and I'm like, because his first thing was, could you help me create content to get the word out? And I was like, little do you know, I actually know this space insanely well. Like, let's keep talking about it. And fast forward to now, I mean, yeah, they're 80% of my revenue because I spend so much time with them. And in the premise is building a business-based application that sits on top of ChatGPT. So we take all of our information out of ChatGPT, which is our baseline model. We then added additional layers of intellect for lines of business. So HR, sales and marketing, leadership, operations, logistics. And then we've also added the book layers. And then the last thing that we've done in this first product is people treat ChatGPT and OpenAI and artificial intelligence as a one-way conversation, like they ask Google a question, because you don't know. It's called prompt engineering, but they're called prompts when you ask OpenAI and ChatGPT something. That term didn't exist 6 months ago. No one is educated on it. And so one of the things that we do is, after you ask the initial question, we give you 3 suggested prompts to help you keep that conversation going. So that to put a bow on this whole entire thing, it's learning how do you interact with this computer and the speed at which you get answers, it almost scares you. Like, how did you possibly give me a 30-day content calendar like this? Like, how did you do that? And now, I mean, I can get into how, but that's the whole, like, do you want sausage or do you want to know how sausage is made? Like, there's a bunch of very high-tech reasons on why it computes so fast, but it does. That's just all that matters. It does. And it's amazing. And if people learn how to become the best versions of themselves rather than learning how to just push off task, you will see AI have the most amazing impact on society, rather than what you hear on TV is it's doom and gloom. We're coming for your jobs. The drones are going to attack the world. It's so negative, first of all. And then it's all fear. And our premise is that, or you learn how to interact with this. I will tell you, it is not going anywhere. And I've never in my life been more bullish. And I have seen every iteration of tech since Web 2.0, the social media, when Google first launched versus Firefox versus Atlas, like this isn't going anywhere at all. And it's not scary. And what you'll see is, this is amazing. I was just in Boise. We created a product specifically for the real estate industry as our first real product. And it's all the things I just mentioned. And then we added a layer for real estate professionals, like helping them write their descriptions of their houses better. And so we're meeting with these big agencies. And there's this 61-year-old woman who's a real estate agent. And she has got chronic back pain, and she's like a little overweight, and she kind of waddles in there. And she's like, and we're going through the presentation, and there's, I don't know, a couple hundred people in there. And she's like, well, I want to learn. I want to do this. Will you guys train me? And like, part of our whole platform is like training comes with it. So like, of course we will. But I'm like, she's like, but I'm so scared that everyone's going to pass me by. Her name's Dawn. And I was like, Dawn, it's amazing to me how eager you are to learn this, because everyone's starting at the exact same place right now. And you are actually going to become incredible with this. And then you saw like the 30-year-old who didn't want to ask the wrong question for fear of looking dumb. And this 60-year-old in 6 months is going to lap that 30-year-old, that we think should already know all this stuff, because she's willing to learn how to ask questions. And people will become unbelievable professionals when they leverage AI to be more proficient in their work rather than just delegating tasks to it.
Tasks that are inept.
Well, no, the small tasks are, they're menial. Like, they're just, write me this email, they're treating it like an assistant rather than treating it as if this amazing toolkit, right? It's like, yeah, for the guy with the hammer, everything's a nail. Okay, great. Well, I was like, imagine if you had, the hammer, the screwdriver, all those things, but it was like a nail gun type of thing. And then imagine you had all of the wood in the world. It's like, dude, sure, there's plenty of nails and plenty of hammers. Yeah, you go do that thing and become more efficient. It's like the nail gun versus the hammer. Yeah, great. Or having the world's best nail gun that also can be a screwdriver, that could also be a saw. Like, yes, the nail gun to the hammer, you got more work done with the nail gun. Yes. But imagine like building a house that fast. And that's what people are missing.